Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Telemaker Review. It is Wednesday, the 20th of August, 9:49 p.m. I always like getting through August. I have a little bit of a superstition about August. It's a certain, it's a month that, let's just say, resonates with me a certain way. And I think it's kind of a diabolical month, if you will. But that's just me. Just a little bit diabolical. Well, tonight I have actually nothing on my mind, and I haven't podcasted like this in some time. I think I used to call them walkabouts. And I think now, as I look at the history of the Telemaker Review, a walkabout is the ginger on the sushi plate, right? So the ginger is meant to cleanse your palate. And then when your palate is cleansed, you get the full flavor of the next piece of sushi, if it's a different kind of sushi. Although I never quite understood that. I mean, I'm using it metaphorically. So these walkabout podcasts are to just, relax and talk for 50 minutes and see where it goes. Whereas if you notice the trend in the podcast for the last 6 months ago or so, the way it goes is I'll get something on my mind and then I'll do 2-3 shows on it. So I think I've cycled out of this baby boomer thing. I have 1 or 2 more things to say about that. So that's what the walkabout is. It's a middling podcast before I move on to the next theme. Now, the last thing I wanted to say about the boomer generation was they broke the bank. Literally. Now, I'm stealing this idea. For those of you who watched the 90-minute video I put under my last podcast, Nihilism is an Exhausting Thesis, I put a 90-minute Stefan Molyneux video under there where he just goes at the baby boomers like a serial killer. It's quite personal for him, too. He's got a non-existent relationship with his mother, has not spoken with his mother for 25 years. He talks about it. He said it's because she displayed certain behaviors which he considered evil. And because she's never apologized for them, which would be an acknowledgement of them, his philosophy or his belief is that when people don't make amends for the evil they've done and you allow them to stay in your life, it's an invitation. You're giving them an invitation to repeat the same behavior. And you know what? I have to say, based on my experience with my own mother, he's right. He's right. But I haven't cut my mother off, but I have to be very careful. Talking to my mother and interacting with my mother is like measuring doses of arsenic. A low-level dose of arsenic can not hurt you, but if it starts to build up in your body, it gets quite dangerous, and that's what it's like talking to my mother. It's just, I've said enough about it, I think, on the Telemaker Review. She's a cross between Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and the sadistic nun, like the worst of both worlds in terms of negative female personages, right? One religious and one secular, but both of them in the field of consciousness, right? So she's just literally the most obtuse human being I know. And I think it stems from her inability to process her own father's suicide. And so when I say the boomers broke the bank, if you were to take our central banks and our fiscal and monetary policy, we're in a crisis mode now. And I mean, you could say it's been done deliberately, that, the boomers weren't in control of this, but a lot of it, we live in a democratic process. And if you continue to elect liberal governments, I'll use Canada as an example. If you continue to elect liberal governments that run huge deficits, which ultimately run up your national debt, and they're nonsensical, and they're virtue signaling, and they're sending money to other countries. What the short list of things that we got that were shut down by Doge related to U.S. aid. You got to realize that every one of the Five Eyes countries is doing that. And in some instances, in per capita dispersals of capital larger than even the United States, because you're the largest country in the Five Eyes. You're like 335 million U.S. citizens, and then who knows how many more on top of that. The real population of the U.S. might even be close to 400 million now, where population is defined not by citizenship or residency, but just by bodies in the border. Okay, so we don't even know how many people are in the United States now. So Canada is well on its way to being completely destroyed by Mark Carney. And he's like an even more evil version of Justin Trudeau. Keir Starmer, there's pictures circulating everywhere now. I first saw it about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. This picture of a young Keir Starmer. He looks to be about a boy of about 8 or 9 years old. And it's a picture of him and Jimmy Savile. And Jimmy Savile's behind him, standing behind him with both hands on his shoulders, like he's the uncle or something. Now, Keir Starmer is an open homosexual. And well, not open, he doesn't flaunt it, but I mean, the British tabloids are full of stories of young male prostitutes being at his house. And it's true. It's just... in a walkabout, I realized I just hit a pivot moment. A pivot moment whereas I can keep going straight. I can maybe go left and talk about something new. Or I can take the right turn I just opened and do something like something similar, another riff on something like the Catamite Parade, which I did, it's got to be almost a year ago now. I did the Catamite Parade. But I'll just leave it at this. Well, no, I won't, actually. We have to ask ourselves why so much of the Western world is being run by sex freaks. And a sex freak is somebody with a non-expressive, non-natural sexuality, where the natural process of sexuality is procreation and then communion and bonding between the husband and wife so the family stays together. That, can we all agree that's normal sexuality? In some cultures, sex is not a big deal. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who needs to hear this, but remember, when I speak, I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who's been all over the world. The perspective of somebody who speaks 4 languages. this perspective of someone who is a consummate observer and a curious person who's always looking at things in a kind of anthropological way. So I don't know. I don't know about now with the influx of media. I can't speak for 2025, but I can tell you that if you go back one or two generations in Indian culture, India, the South Asian country, India, sex was pretty much just for procreation. And then the husband and wife would stay together in relative celibacy for decades and raise their children. Okay? It's very interesting how different cultures approach sexuality. Now, we have the habit of thinking that we're always right about everything. This is one of the great defects of the West. Well, they don't have sex because they're not free, Bruce. You think the Hindu priests are telling them to just have sex for procreation? They're free to have sex once they're married. All the dowries have been paid. It's an arranged marriage. The families are happy. They're free to have as much sex as they want. Some do. I mean, there are some Indian couples that will have a sexual relationship similar to a Western couple. But there are many, many Indian families in which the sex might go on for the first couple of years. Sri M, the Indian sage I sometimes play videos of, he said it in an interview one time that he used to practice romantic love when he was a younger man at the beginning of his marriage, but him and his wife haven't done that for decades. And so this is quite common in other cultures. There are cultures that exist without sexual activity. No masturbation and no lovemaking. Now, I'm not saying that's the right way to go. I'm just using it as a counterpoint, as a recontextualization of what we think sex is. I think there's very many other cultures that don't have very much sex other than to procreate. And you can tell the cultures that aren't that involved in sex because there's no sexuality in the way the women dress. Okay? There's nothing, and I'm not talking about throwing a burqa on now with the face mask and the black lace over the eyes and the whole deal. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about just the way women dress. Like the Amish, for example. That's a classic example. The Amish. They don't dress to sexually stimulate the men. Our society has non-stop sexual stimulation. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that the genitals as an energy center in the body are one of the best ways to destabilize a society over 3 generations. And that's exactly what's been done in the West. It's destabilization over 3 generations. And we've been through all this before, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Now, we now live in a world where through the normalization of perversion, we're now run by sex freaks, especially if they're on the left. I would say Gavin Newsom's, he comes off as a nice family guy and everything. Believe me when I tell you, there's something going on behind closed doors with that guy. He's gay. No man takes as much pride and preparation in their appearance and their persona, and their skin and their teeth and all of that stuff, unless they're preening for sexual, unless they're baiting for random sexual experience. You can call me a prude if you want, but we're in the 11th hour now, and when you look around you in Western society, it's pretty hard to say I'm wrong at this point. And I'm not approaching this like the Catholic nun in the 50s, whacking you with the chalkboard stick, you know. Don't touch your privates. It's a sin. You'll go to hell. It's not what I'm saying, okay? I've certainly enjoyed my sexuality my whole life, and it's still a part of my life, okay? But we can't overlook what's going on around us. The freaks like Justin Trudeau, you know, and I mean, these are known things. I'm not making anything up here. Justin Trudeau had a 12-year-old girlfriend when he was in his 30s. Okay? And she was I think she was a student at a private school he taught at. 12 years old. There's pictures of them circulating. Okay? Do you not find that a little strange? And he carried on a relationship with this girl. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. It wasn't just physical. It was physical, but not just physical. Okay? So he's sending text messages to a 12-year-old girl. Hi, sweetie, how are you today? I think you're the best. I want you to think about this. Why would a man I think at the time he was in his late 30s when this happened. Why would a man in his late 30s want a relationship with a 12-year-old girl? And an emotional relationship? The real question is, what was done to him to make that something he would want? Because that's not a normally evolving human being. Okay? For example, a pedophile who's preying on children will only interact with the children for the sexual encounter. There's no great relationship there. You understand? It's not like the pedophile is sending the child chocolates and roses and writing letters to them. Okay? So this Trudeau thing is even freakier. Right? It's even freakier. Keir Starmer. Pictures with Jimmy Savile from when he was 7, I don't know, somewhere between 7 and 9 years old. Jimmy Savile. Prince Charles. Okay? And you can always see, they always come from connected families. Now, Keir Starmer may have come from, I don't know, like a working class family. But when I say connections, I mean he was introduced to this world, Prince Charles and Jimmy Savile as a boy. You've got this freak show in France with Macron and this thing he's married to. I don't know what it is. Well, it's a man, a woman. It's just, it looks like a creepy old man to me now. That's what Macron's wife looks like to me. I'm not even sure if wife is the correct word to use. But that dude looks like a creepy old man. Walks like a man, sits like a man, has hands like a man. Candace Owens has completely deconstructed this. Rabbi Shmuley says it's none of our business. We shouldn't be talking about it. Well, I mean, if they were a private couple living in an apartment in France and he was a banker and she was a school teacher and they had no public office, I might be inclined to agree with Rabbi Shmuley. We live in a free will space. And as long as your behavior is not affecting the behavior of others or the experience of life of others, if you're not negatively impacting on them or restricting their free will, then do what you want and learn from your lessons. I don't I wouldn't go too hog wild with that, but the reason we can't ignore it is Macron is the leader of a country that was one of the driving forces for continuing the war against Russia, using Ukraine as the proxy. Is that really his policy? Or is he being mind controlled? Or is his freaky sex life being used to control him? And it's everywhere. I mean, these guys are just freaks now. There's that video that was circulating where the German president, Keir Starmer, and Macron, on a train in Europe, got caught with cocaine. They didn't quite get caught, but anybody with the eyes, every cocaine dealer in the world watched that video and went, yeah, they're railing lines. Yeah. You know, so where's the moral standard in our leadership? I don't see it. And how did we get to this point? How did we get to this point? And why is nobody saying anything about this? Where are the baby boomers? And I think that Macron and Trudeau and Starmer and the president of Germany, I think they're all Gen Xers. So this is the Frankenstein offspring of the baby boomers in power, in the power circles, I mean. Justin Trudeau's father was a definitive boomer. He advocated hedonism and decadence his whole life, represented it, just completely represented it. I mean, the guy's the Prime Minister of Canada, and after his divorce, he's going on public dates. And when I say public, I mean the press has tipped off where he and his date are going to be so they can go and take photos, meaning the Prime Minister's office wanted it in the papers. They wanted it to go public. And there's Pierre Trudeau on dates with like Barbara Streisand in the 70s, like famous folk singers and rock and 70s musical figures. He's the leader of a country. Yeah, Bruce, he's allowed to enjoy himself. I mean, John F. Kennedy was probably a sex addict. You know, I don't think they controlled him, though, for obvious reasons I don't have to spend a lot of time on. But he was a sex addict. Bill Clinton was a sex addict. Okay? A sex addict is somebody who their sexuality and the impulse of that lower chakra is so strong. They're almost like a heroin addict, and they have to have a fix every certain number of hours. And it's hours, not days. With people like this, it's hours. Could be 8 hours, could be 24 hours, could be 12. Yeah. I just thought of a really creepy statistic. But from the end of World War II to now, and just to make the math simple, let's just not say, let's say 1947. So 75, 47, 48, 49, 50, 49, 3. So for the last 78 years, given the advent of television, given the advent of videotapes, given the advent then of the internet in the 90s, and the very short and rapid proliferation of pornography, I'm going to use my old, just so you guys don't think I'm being a prude. And I'm not trying to be a prude. I'm not trying to say don't enjoy your body. Sensuality is a spiritual experience. Okay? I'm not being prudish. But I'm saying, where if sex is the cart and life is the horse, we've put the cart before the horse. Okay? What percentage of the global bandwidth of internet is pornography? Now, you may think that's a difficult question to answer, but it's quite easy because all of the metrics on the internet are kept now. They're all done by the provisioning software that the internet providers use. Okay, determining the exact percentage of global internet bandwidth dedicated to pornography is difficult due to a lack of current universally agreed upon data. However, based on various studies and reports, the estimates vary, with some older sources claiming figures as high as 30%. Older statistics from the early 2010s. Well, the only reason the number would be that low, 30%, is from the male perspective, you don't need it that long. You're done in like 10 minutes. Whereas if you go and you watch a YouTube video, you're probably going to watch the whole thing, right? What I'm asking you to contemplate, this is all I'm asking you to think about, and this is a walkabout. It's not a focused podcast. I don't have a topic in mind. But what I'm asking you to contemplate, to reflect upon, is the degree to which sexuality has overtaken and super expressed itself in the consciousness of Westerners. And we all know the beginning of it, right? It's a creepy Jewish guy who fucked dogs named Hugh Hefner. And yeah, Hugh Hefner got so twisted, he got into bestiality. How does that happen? You've got the most beautiful women in the world around you. And you'd rather put your penis in the bum of a dog. I can't figure it out. Right? Well, I can, but I don't want to think it. I don't want to think it that deeply. It's too disturbing, to be honest with you. So we're run by freaks. We're on the cusp of World War III. And here's another question to ask yourself. Why are people of this particular sexual expression, and I'm not going to call it gay or straight. These are people that will literally fuck anything. The Starmer, they like prostitutes, they like, as I said, Justin Trudeau, 12-year-old girl, he's in his late 30s. Macron marries his male teacher who's like 16 years older than him. And the relationship starts when Macron is 16 and the teacher is 31. Okay? That's freaky. That's not even gay. Gay is you start to figure out around puberty. You're a bit of feminine before puberty if you're a man. You're a bit of a tomboy if you're a woman. Puberty hits and you go, I'm kind of attracted to women and I'm a woman. I think I'm a lesbian. I'm kind of attracted to men, and I'm a man. I think I'm gay. And you work with that. You decide what you're going to do with it. You look for love. You've never been sexually abused as a child. And you go out and you start to look for experience and the expression of yourself through the physical act of love as a homosexual. And that's natural if you're a homosexual. And what we're dealing with here is a whole other animal. This is power-based sexuality. This is just like my programming is malfunctioning sexuality. You know? This is what I'm talking about. It's just friggin' freaky, man. Yeah, so, I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's like a freak show out there. Okay? And it's all of them now, man. It's all of them. I mean, let's just take a quick look at this. There we go. There's Macron and the thing he's married to. So you see where the black arrow is pointing? That was the girl alleged to have signed the non-disclosure agreement. that Trudeau was involved with. And let's get back to that picture. Look at how young that girl is. So she looks about 12. I don't think she's gone through puberty yet. Maybe 11, okay? And the third picture I have is, there he is. That's Keir Starmer, the present leader of the United Kingdom, with Jimmy Savile. Okay? That's not doctored. I mean, it could be. You've got to be careful these days. And, but I don't think so. My gut says no. Okay? And like, nobody talks about this. Well, you're a prude, And kudos to Candace Owens for tackling this topic and talking about just the indecency and vulgarity of it. And when you go back and you trace the history of it, again, it's the baby boomers. They were the generation that allowed this through the front door. And we created a culture where if you had anything to say about this, well, then you were some kind of hate monger. You were some kind of Neanderthal. Tolerance, tolerance, tolerance. Well, we've gone from tolerance to a dictatorial leadership by perverts. Sexually deformed human beings incapable of real, lasting, loving relationships. That is a key indicator of a person, by the way. Whether they're capable of forming lasting relationships. Okay? I mean, it says a lot about a person. It just says a lot about people. Now Justin Trudeau is doing the same thing that his father did. He's dating celebrities. I think he was, what's the name of that pop singer? Katy Perry. And coincidentally, the press was there to photograph him. And so that's all done intentionally. That's exactly what his father did in the 70s after he divorced Margaret Trudeau, who was originally Margaret Sinclair, was her maiden name. And then you've got the whole Fidel Castro thing being the biological father of Justin Trudeau, and I completely buy into that. Okay? And if you buy into it, then you have to start to admit to yourself, and this is where it gets tricky, and you won't want to talk about it in public. I mean, maybe it's easier now in 2025, but it's not something that most people would bring up at a dinner party, right? I was watching a movie. I'm not quite done yet. I'm not sure I'm going to finish it. It's the latest Joaquin Phoenix movie. It's called Eddington. And he plays a sheriff in a small New Mexico or small Arizona town. And they try to tackle some of these issues. But what was it? One sec. So it's basically another version of the whole Susan Clancy thing, what they did to John Mack at Harvard. Now, it's curious. We have to ask ourselves why they did that. Was the timing for what Mack was trying to say just not correct? Did they have a different time in mind? Because now the government and the PSYOPs are going full bore on abductions and alien disclosure and all of the stuff that John Mack was talking about. But it was so dangerous when Mack was doing it in the early 2000s that they killed him. And they brought in Susan Clancy to dig his grave, reputationally, and in terms of a publishing canon. They like to cover their tracks. It's almost, the more I look at the world that's emerging and the 5 decades preceding it, you can call me paranoid if you want to, and I won't hold it against you for this theory I have, but I'm going to say it out loud anyways. It seems in some ways like they knew we were going to be headed to AI. And there was this fetish to get everything down on paper so that when the data was there and it was digitized, the AI would be able to go out through its algorithms and come back with the answer they wanted. You can, like I said, you can call me crazy, but so yeah, they do this. This is what they do. They do this Susan Clancy thing. Oh, you're such a prude. No, I'm not a prude. I just don't want a guy who routinely fucks strange men, has them brought to his house, sodomizes them, has them taken from his house, and does this on a regular basis. I don't think that guy is morally fit to be the leader of the United Kingdom. I don't think a guy who dated an 11 or 12-year-old girl and who was in a relationship with her is morally fit to be the leader of Canada. I don't think Joe Biden, as a known pedophile and completely corrupt human being, was morally fit to be the leader of the United States. I don't think Emmanuel Macron, who starts getting sodomized by his 31-year-old teacher in high school when he's 16, I don't think he's morally fit to be leader of France. Why can't we say things like this anymore? Why is this taboo? Now you understand why they went at the Christians so hard, why they had to destroy it as a cultural movement and a cultural voice. And remember, despite my criticisms of the Abrahamic system, which have been many, thorough, precise, fierce, unrelenting, and scathing, I will be the first to admit I have been very hard on the Abrahamic religions. And that part of my message on the Telemanker Review is for people who truly want to find God. That you gotta do it on your own. And you gotta develop a practice, a spiritual practice, just like a physical practice for your health, like your diet is a practice. Waking up every morning and running 5 kilometers before you get in the shower and prepare yourself to go to work is a physical discipline to maintain your health and your cardiovascular health. Going to the gym and lifting weights is a physical discipline to maintain the cosmetic appearance you want. It takes discipline. Okay? Joe Rogan is an incredibly disciplined individual. Spirituality requires a practice and a discipline. It's not a belief system, and that's why I criticize the Abrahamic system. Everyone's a part of it. I'm a Catholic. I'm baptized. I've done all the sacraments. I was baptized. I went to First Communion, and then I went to confirmation. Okay, those are the 3 principal sacraments. The 4th is marriage. I'm a Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic. I'm a cultural Catholic. But this is what the baby boomers did. Is they nuked the moral landscape of America. And they won't apologize. And they won't take a step back. Even with all the mounting evidence that we are mired in moral corruption now. And I'm not just talking about financial moral corruption. I'm talking about like the free... There is no way in a moral society people like this could gain leadership. I would be very surprised if even the most dictatorial regime in the Middle East had freaks like Starmer, Macron, Trudeau, and the rest running them. You'd be looking at a different... And I mean... It's not like at a power level they don't indulge their base needs. But in the Islamic world, you're not allowed mistresses. You're allowed multiple wives. And wives have legal rights under Sharia law. Okay, so it's not like you can go out and get a quickie. You got to marry the woman. Okay? You got to take care of her for life. You got to take care of her parents. I mean, it's a big deal. Yeah. Oh, I don't believe that the Middle East is a moral place because some of the countries allow polygamy. Yeah, it's not like, but it's not like these wives are being kept in basement apartments and they're living on craft dinner. They're, at a material level, if you have enough money to be a polygamist in the Middle East, at a material level, most of the wives are probably living better than most wives in North America. Is it a loving relationship? I don't know. Who am I to say? I mean, I find being married to one woman hard enough, right? I don't know why any man would want, 11 or 12 women that he's responsible for. Or maybe when you have more than one wife, they cancel each other out. Like if one of the 11 wives is nagging the guy, the other 10 say, hey, leave him alone. I don't know. If that's the way it works, polygamy is starting to look pretty good to me. But there's nothing in these other countries like what's going on in the West. Nothing. And it's the product of a very strange subculture. One might say satanic, as a catchphrase, not as a literal. I mean, I hope I need to explain something here for a moment. The Talamanca Review is growing. I get 1 to 2 new subscribers a day, sometimes 4 or 5 in a single day. On Substack, I'm up to about 340 subscribers. And don't forget, you'll have a lot of watchers before they hit the subscribe button. There's a lot of people I check in on Substack, but I'm not subscribed to them. Okay? There's a lot of YouTube sites. I don't hit a subscription button till I know I want to hear everything that guy's doing or that gal is doing. That's when I hit the subscription button, is when I want to be notified when something new from that person comes out. So it's a commitment. It's not like you're waiting for the YouTube algorithm to do something for you. So I'm growing in leaps and bounds. And I will say again, for those of you who do subscribe, thank you very much. I'm very grateful. Helps me do the podcast. And but I'm going to do it anyways. I had some guy send me a message the other day. I can't figure out how to do a paid subscription on Substack. I said, don't worry about it. I don't restrict any material. No, I really want to subscribe. I want to show my support. I said, well, it's all there. It's all explained on Substack. 30 minutes goes by. I get another message. He goes, I can't figure it out. I said, well, I think the universe is trying to tell you that you're not meant to do this. Keep your money. And I don't know if he figured it out or not. But the point is, I'm going to do this no matter what. But I do appreciate the subscriptions because it's like, I don't know how to take it. It's like a Christmas gift. You don't need it, but you're grateful to open the package under the tree on the 25th, right? And I'm grateful to all of you who have subscribed. Thank you very much. So, I mean, this is where the walkabout went tonight. Maybe I'm some kind of pervert because all my walkabouts end up in this perverted domain. Maybe I have some perversion. I don't know. I don't think so. But what astounds me most since I did those 2 or 3 podcasts, Who Are We, and the subsequent podcasts that really kind of focused in on baby boomers and Gen X, the topic just came up. And then you just sort of realize how bad it is now. I mean, you can watch TV shows, okay? And I noticed that HBO was doing this. It's one of the things I picked up on 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Like, HBO did a series called Rome. By the way, it's absolutely fantastic if you haven't seen it. They only did it for 2 series. I think it's about 20 episodes altogether, but it is a masterclass in television that is done at a writing, production, directing, and acting level that equivalent to or in excess of most Hollywood movies. It's just phenomenally well done. But they really explored the sex of Rome. And I thought, Was it always like that, or was it just Caligula, or like, I don't know. And then you had another series, Deadwood. And in Deadwood, one of the principal scenes that they continually go back to in the series is a saloon called the Gem Saloon, run by Al Swearingen, and played by a remarkable Irish actor named Ian McShane, who is the guy who runs the Continental Hotel in the John Wick movies, the New York Continental. But his real breakthrough role was in Deadwood, and he runs a saloon, and they go pretty hard on the sex in that too. And I'm thinking, am I being a prude? Have people always been doing this throughout history, and I'm just a prude? I don't think so. I don't think so. And the thing about a brothel in Montana in like 1879 is that most of the men who end up there have not had a sexual release for 6 months or a year. If they've been out panning for gold or doing some kind of nature-based research, okay, or nature-based work. But the last 78 years, given our population and given, I do this all the time on the Talamanca Review. I start a thought and I don't finish it. I get sidetracked. So it begins with television. It begins Elvis moving his hips and Playboy magazine in the 50s. That's when it all begins. And then it just gets progressively racier every decade until we arrive at the point where I think the most viewed pornography in the world now is basically gangbangs, which 5 or 6 guys go at one woman. And so you can see the same sort of degenerative cycle that even Hugh Hefner went through himself, beginning with a tremendous admiration for female beauty, which is always the Jewish rationalization for lasciviousness. It's funny. And by the way, Hugh Hefner was Jewish. It's usually always a Jew. Okay. It's usually always a Jew. And Weimar Republic, Germany between World War I and World War II, was another example of a Jewish population debasing it and running it into the ground, and just for the purpose of making all women available cheaply to be fucked in the ass or put into really depraved sexual circumstances like gangbangs and stuff like that. It's a Jewish thing. It's in many ways, I don't know if they practice that sex themselves. I don't think so, because the Jewish family is a sacrosanct thing and usually very beautifully run. So I don't know if this is an attack on the goy or just a way they make money, an easy way to make money, like gambling, drugs, pornography. Maybe we need laws in which impulse-based spending needs to be regulated. Right? Like I said, I've said this several times on the Talamanca Review already. We've now reached a point where our own government can lawfully, legally, and grammatically be called a pimp. They're living off the avails of women's sex work. And this is because they're taxing the women on OnlyFans. Okay? It's mind-boggling. And let's just take a look at that for a moment if we want to talk about perversion. Okay? Why are so many men, and I assume there's tens, if not hundreds of millions of men into digital sex, where so OnlyFans takes it to a new level where for a little bit of money or something, you can interact with the girl. And there must be hundreds of millions of men doing this, because there's something like 1 in 10 women between 18 and 25 are on OnlyFans in North America now. So Like what a shallow and hollow way to express your desire to couple. And remember the root purpose of sexuality. It's procreation. It's how we keep our species going. This is why it was made pleasurable, to make sure that we don't forget to do it. Because if you forget to do it, the species will not go on. And we have certain biological triggers, which I don't think should be manipulated. Animals have biological triggers. In the animal world, it's not visual. It's not a big booty or anything like that. In the animal world, it's all smell. It's pheromones, right? And when a male animal smells a female in heat, it's almost possessed. I mean, I've seen cats up here go 2-3 kilometers through the jungle at night, an extremely dangerous enterprise, even for a cat, because they smell a female in heat. Okay, as I can consider myself something of a cat expert now, and the males leave, and they leave because they smell females in heat, and the males will be gone for a couple months or something. It's quite interesting the way the whole thing works. What a strange walkabout. So we can't go on like this. We can't go on like this. And this is why we're being conquered by immigrant groups. There's something like a dozen cities in England now that have Muslim mayors. We're so morally weak now because excessive sexuality weakens you on every level. A man shouldn't be expending his semen that much. There's probably been, given the population and the escalation in pornography and asexual behavior, there's probably been more liters of semen released in the world in the last 75 years than in the last 2,000. I'm not even joking. Sit down and do the math. Look at the population, look at the stimulation. Oh yeah, Bruce, but the Romans, yeah, maybe 200 senators. Maybe. Okay? But now it's everybody. It's everybody now. In this virtual world, in this digital world, everybody can have sex like a Roman senator now. You want to be Caligula? It's all out there. Just go to Pornhub.com. That's what Caligula experienced. You're not actually in the room touching the girls, but you can get the experience if you want, and you can climax. And that's what Caligula was trying to do. So how are you any different than Caligula? I also think that sex without love produces cruelty in people. Cruelty and perversion. And I give you what Hugh Hefner is my example. And where am I getting this from? Well, there was a TV series done a couple years ago, Secrets of Playboy Mansion, and yeah, you can always count on women to tell the truth when it suits them. When there's no more money to be made shaking their ass or showing their tits. And it's the Playboy bunnies themselves, who are now in their 50s and 60s, some of them in their 70s. Some of them go right back to the 50s. It's Hugh Hefner's ex-wives. It's one of the ex-wives who said, I opened a door and he was stooping a dog. Right? He's got me. I'm Playmate of the Year this year. He's got me and he's penetrating a dog. So if we know this cycle of sex and perversion and cruelty and degeneration of consciousness by misuse of that chakra, why are we encouraging it? Where's our spiritual leadership? There is none. Or it's satanic. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.